It's the Real Estate Podcast, across every state, city and town of Australia.
And welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Podcast, available on iHeartRadio and also Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts from. It is a Wednesday morning and the 6th of July for 2022. Coming up, we're talking with Fabian Sinelli from Melbourne, taking a look at the property market there and looking at auctions. You know, Fabian is one of the leading auctioneers around the country, so it's great to have his insights into what is taking place right now in the Melbourne property market. Also, don't forget about the Hunter Valley prize package that we're giving away. Time is running out. In fact, time is up on Saturday, which is the 9th, so make sure that you get your entry in. All you need is those 7 secret words. Yesterday I helped out a little bit, giving you 2 of them, which were Mercure and Aloft. And if you didn't hear the secret words on the days that we were giving them out, all you got to do is go back to the podcasts on the day, find the 5 secret words. It's that easy to enter. You could win it. And also having a look back on this day in 2020, you know that you're in the wrong job when you read this. From Kansas City, the Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes agrees to the largest contract for an athlete on the planet. It made sports history. How much, I hear you ask? Well, it was a 12-year deal worth over $500 million. And we think that there's a lot of money in player contracts in AFL, but NFL is the clear winner.
From first home buyers to property investors and everything in between. Every morning on the Real Estate Podcast. It's the Main Centre Forecast with propertybuyer.com.au.
All right, let's have a look at your weather around Australia this morning. First, we go to Sydney and expecting more rain for your Wednesday, a high of 17 degrees. Melbourne expecting a sunny day. How often do we get to say that? Enjoy it, and your high is 15. Brisbane, a possible shower with 21. And in Perth today, sunny skies and 20 degrees.
Grab your coffee and switch on your real estate breakfast every weekday morning from 6:30. Let's talk Melbourne property and auctions, a podcast series with Fabian Sinelli.
And what is happening in Melbourne right now, apart from it's very cold and miserable? Well, let's find out, and welcome to the podcast, Fabian Sinelli. He's the Managing Director and Auctioneer from EYS Auctions. Good morning, Fabian. Welcome back to the Breakfast Podcast.
Thank you, Craig. I think cold and miserable is an understatement about the Melbourne weather at the moment.
I'll tell you what, you are sounding so much better than you did the last time we spoke. It really did sort of put you on your back, so through the worst of it.
Definitely through the worst of it, and thank goodness for that, because I think having a certain amount of energy doing auctions is one of the reasons why I love doing what I'm doing, so I'm so happy to be back up and about and ready to rock and roll on Saturdays.
All right, well, talking of Saturdays, let's go back to last Saturday. I was just having a look at where the clearance rate was, Fabian, at this time last year, and we were sitting at 74%. So how did you go last weekend?
I didn't go too bad, Craig. I had 8 scheduled auctions. I ended up conducting 6. There were a couple that were cancelled before, 1 sold prior, 1 postponed. So out of the 6 I conducted, I ended up knocking 4 down under the hammer. So that was still a pretty good Saturday for mine. It's definitely coming to a bit of a normalisation, I think, in this market. That's what I'm seeing. There's still obviously a lot of hesitancy, and it's definitely still a lower bidder market. But I did take a couple of things out of last Saturday. I think I understand now that school holidays plays a big factor in clearance rates being impacted. We're definitely not at the levels as we were this time last year. Obviously, those interest rate rises are certainly affecting the market, and certainly the consumer confidence is really, really down at the moment. But speaking to a fellow auctioneer in my business over the weekend, we pretty much came to the conclusion that we feel that we've hit the bottom of the market. I don't feel that we're going to get into a worse state than what we are now. This is, from what I'm seeing, especially at EYS, probably the worst it's ever been if you take the pandemic out of it. I don't think we're going to get much worse now. I think now the market is going to adjust, because I've seen that on the weekend through agents adjusting through reserve set meetings, quote ranges, and I can certainly see the conversations that I'm having with vendors that their expectations are now being in line with the marketplace. So that is a big positive. Another positive I took out of the market last week, Craig, was that, interestingly, 46 properties were pulled from auction last weekend. That's a very low number. That's significantly down from recent weeks and months. So I think that tells us that confidence is starting to creep back in for sellers to stick to the auction process.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I want to come back to a comment that you made a few weeks ago when you mentioned that agents should explore in-room auctions. Now, I know that agents listening and buyers and sellers alike will be very interested to know more about this, and I presume that you've done them yourself. So is this still a relevant thing to do in the market right now?
I'm really glad you brought that up. It's something that I've been trying to implore agents to do, and even to really pitch it to sellers. I think because we're in a lower bidder market, we need to try and create a certain amount of buzz at our auctions moving forward. I had the pleasure last week of doing an in-room auction event with a great agent of mine from Ray White Furniture Gully, Jack Rickard. He is an absolutely exceptional young elite auction agent. And I want to give you a couple of stats, Craig, from an in-room auction that I did with him. Now, mind you, this wasn't a series of auctions in one night. This was just one sole singular auction in an in-room environment. We, at the moment, average bidders at our on-site auctions are 2, and average over reserve achieved for on-site auctions is at 3%. The statistics that I'm about to give you for the in-room auction are staggering. We had 13% achieved, 13% above reserve achieved for the in-room auction, and an average of 9 active registered bidders. That is staggering. They are absolutely phenomenal numbers if you're comparing them to on-sites. And it's very hard to put a finger on the reason why that happened, apart from obviously Jack running a world-class auction campaign for the property. But I actually surveyed the buyers after the in-room auction event, and I wanted to ask them deliberately for the show today, what was it that made you more comfortable about the in-room, and what was it about this particular night that made you want to come along and bid as ferociously as you did? And they all gave me a consistent response, and that was convenience. The buyers loved the fact that they were able to bid in the warmth of a room. They also loved the fact that they could get their weekends back and not have to have the stress of going from auction to auction trying to buy a property. And I think that midweek time slot especially played a huge factor in allowing more buyers to attend the auction, which meant more competition and effectively meant a more premium price for the seller.
Yes, it kind of makes sense that people want to get their weekends back, sort of understand that. So perhaps, Fabian, just break that down a little bit more in terms of what are in-room auctions and why should people be looking to do them apart from what you've just mentioned?
So in-room auctions are effectively auctions that are conducted in a room. This might be a boardroom, a hall, or just a large open space, and usually conducted at a nighttime midweek time slot. Now, more often than not, the seating is structured in a theatre style setup, which means the auctioneer is up at the front conducting the auction or auctions, if it's a multiple auction event evening, to the audience. It's quite common for a number of properties to be auctioned off at in-room auctions, but as I said, last week I was able to conduct just one auction, and that still worked incredibly well. One of the great things about in-room auctions, Craig, is that you can showcase the property through audio visuals on a large screen or TV, so buyers can stay engaged and be reminded of the great reasons, I guess, they're there to buy. They can also give agents a really good reason to run auctions for properties that aren't suited for on-site. So, for example, a block of land, an apartment, might be a tenanted property where access can be limited, or even a property which is located within a noisy environment and subject to distraction. Another major benefit of an in-room auction is the buyer pool. Now, generally speaking, Craig, qualified and very serious buyers are more likely to attend and bid at an in-room auction which avoids onlookers and neighbours given their midweek time slot. But it's because of this the property on sale will normally attract strong interest and competition. And with the large crowd in attendance, should there be multiple auctions in one night, it can really spark emotional and unexpected bidding, which can lead to greater chances of success for the vendors.
Oh, that's really interesting. And perhaps also explain why vendors, people looking to sell their properties, why they should be opting for in-rooms now rather than on-site auctions.
Well, as I said before, approaching a lower bidder market, we have that potential risk that buyers may start to be indecisive about which auctions they choose to bid at on weekends, given that stock levels, from what agents are telling me, are on the rise, especially with private sale listings as well, heavily sort of coming in. We are seeing the bidders now being a lot more spread out in the marketplace, which is reducing the amount of competition we have for our auctions. If we isolate ourselves from the competition, then we can have comfort knowing our buyers aren't distracted by other auctions on the same day. So selling in isolation, not competition, is something that the elite auction agents live by. We understand on-sites are the showcase for new business. Agents always want a great street auction because they want to attract potential sellers. But how damaging can that be, Craig, if it doesn't go to plan? Probably more common not going to go to plan in this marketplace, given that we are in a lower bidder market. So mitigating that risk means you don't damage street reputation, but you gain an advantage over your competitors as a point of difference while ultimately selling more properties under the hammer. The premium results in this market are more important than you trying to attract more business out on the street, because that's what's going to get you the business.
Yeah, point of difference. You certainly need that. Well, next time we speak, it's going to be very interesting, because if you feel that things have started to stabilise somewhat, we will find out next time we speak, just to see where the market in Melbourne in particular is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be an interesting next couple of weeks. I think it's going to be an interesting next couple of months, to be fair. We're obviously going to see another rate rise, potentially 2 rate rises over the month of July and August. So I'm not so sure if that's going to send shockwaves into the marketplace. I don't think it will. I think now, because we're expecting it, I think the initial shock was the one that really hurt us. But now that the market is expecting it, hopefully we just go through that correction and normalization and things can get back to normal quickly, just in time for the spring market.
Yeah, the spring, bring it on. Thank you, Fabian. Enjoy your Wednesday, no doubt a busy one, and look forward to chatting in a couple of weeks' time.
Thanks, Craig. Speak to you then.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.